But yeah, we'll have more of your chats, folks, and I know your phone calls too. But we'll move on to a little bit of basketball talk because, as was mentioned, which is a really nice gesture by the University of Arkansas and the athletic department to have the press conference with Chin Coleman at 11 a.m. instead of at noon like they usually do with Sam Pittman. So it was really nice to have that. But I was really hoping that when Chin came in, he was wearing some outrageous outfit that was really on point. Pretty basic. It must be casual Wednesday.
All he did was move the camera angle to where it was just awful. It looked like Kaywood walked over there and fixed it to a degree after a minute. But yeah, early on, I was like, dang.
Well, I liked when he started it because he's like, y'all hear me? And then he's like, okay, I need you to guys let me know if you can hear me. It's like, we're not supposed to have our microphones on, man, but we hear you. It's okay. But still, some really interesting stuff. Of course, Arkansas and TCU happening this Friday. Game is not on TV. Well, just go ahead and say it. It is, once again, it is not on TV. But that's okay because Inside Arkansas is going to be there. Curtis and Andrew are going to be down there. So be sure to check out InsideArkansas.com and as well as the Twitters for Curtis and Andrew. I'm sure they'll be having a lot of up-to-date information, maybe live play-by-play calling it. I'd love to see that happen. We'll see. But
yeah, well, by the way, because a lot of people have commented on my video from this morning saying, why don't you guys just stream it? Just stream it on YouTube. That's a good way to lose our monetization. Any relationship we have with the University of Arkansas, like we can't do that. ES Pinto or whatever, he might be able to go do that. He has no ties or anything he has to worry about from that front. That would not be good for our livelihood. So we will not be live streaming it, but we'll do everything we can to keep you guys updated.
Yeah, I was wondering actually too. I guess because usually something like that is an SEC thing because SEC owns the rights to the game, but if it's a Big 12 team at the same time, I don't know. It doesn't matter. There's no streaming. Okay, so we'll just gotta check out InsideArkansas.com and also Pod at the Palace. I keep wanting to say Pod of that nature. It's like nope. Can't mix them both together. It is Pod at the Palace, not Pod of that nature. So either way, Coach Chin. First off, we'll talk about what he had to say about what Hogs can do better post that Kansas game that totally counted and everyone was excited for.
Hopefully, they're a really good team, right? They were without their All-American Player of the Year candidate, 5-man. We weren't healthy. We had a small percentage of Adu, a small percentage of TV, a small percentage of Nelly. Although they had two other players that we've played against. We played against Rylan Griffith. We played against Shaquille Moore. So we were pretty familiar with their group. I think that what we take from that is that we were organized. We played hard. We did some things that we practiced. We did some things that we wanted to do in our scouting and our schemes. So those are wins for us in that game. All right. Offensively, we could have shot the ball better from three. We could have taken better shots from three. And then we got tired at the end. In the fourth quarter, we were dead. And so we kind of let go the rope a little bit and gave them a little opportunity to kind of claw back into the lead that we had created. But we want to be able to finish our games. Of course, that's something that we're going to take from that game and to continue to get better in our schemes, to continue to get better in what our rules and our principles are. And offensively, we think that we can put together a better game in terms of the way we share the basketball, how well the ball moves, and how well we shoot the ball, getting open shots out of paint touches. So there's a lot for us. We didn't rebound the ball well the way we needed to. They got 50-50 balls, loose balls. They scored on offensive rebounds. Like those are things that we are not going to – that's not going to be our team. Our team is going to be built on toughness. Our team is going to be built on being first to the floor, getting every loose ball, getting 40% of our misses back. That's what we do. That's who we are. So we got a lot to work on. We got a long way to go, Bob.
So I know you guys are going to give your thoughts, but I just want to give a lot of credit to Coach Coleman because it's almost a lost art. I am glad that he's took that. He's like, hey, we had positives in that game. Positives came from it, but let's be honest about what happened here. But here are the things we got to work on. Like that's exactly the type of answer I want to hear coaches talk about when coming off of a game like that against Kansas.
Yeah, that was good, and I agree with a lot of things he said. I was interested. It's interesting to hear him say that the team goal, I guess, is to rebound 40% of their misses. That's a lot, and they probably did that with Oscar Tshiebwe, I guess, for a couple of years at Kentucky. But I don't know who that guy is going to be this year. Maybe it'll be a collective effort. But if they're on the offensive glass like that, that'll get me really excited because it was my biggest gripe about Eric Musselman's teams. Is that they missed a hell of a lot of shots, but they really didn't rebound that many of them to get themselves second chance opportunities. So that would be good to see. Interesting, some of the things he talked about, and this is not a surprise, but obviously them being just really fatigued in the fourth quarter of that game, which makes sense when you've only had 5 or 6 guys out there practicing. You haven't been able to get up and down in scrimmage. Well, now you get to test yourself against a TCU team that's not as good as Kansas is in terms of talent, but they played the fastest tempo in the Big 12 last season. They led the country in fast break points. So if you're not in shape, and you better be getting ready for a track meet, like that's something that you're really going to have to work on in terms of getting in shape quick, man. Like we'll see what these lungs are all about for these dudes in this game against TCU.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like Arkansas is going to have the deepest rotation in college basketball. And so, yeah, conditioning is something that they absolutely do need to keep trending in the right direction. And I expect that. I mean, we still really don't know how much some of these guys have even practiced at all. And so it's kind of makes sense that they would be a little bit lacking in that department. But no, I love the fact that he's not satisfied. And it kind of goes back to what made me so excited about the Kansas game is because Arkansas blew out a top team going 6 for 24 from 3. The rebounding battle was like almost dead even, where like, when you see a blowout, or I'm calling it a blowout, it was a 16-point game, a decisive victory, you usually expect there to be some huge discrepancy in either like the turnover battle, rebounding, 3 points or whatever. And so it's kind of what made me so excited about that Kansas game. And it makes me even more excited to hear just how much they feel like they have to work on, and how it's not like they went out there and just played a great game of basketball and they're super pleased with where they're at everywhere. Like they still see so many opportunities. And he spoke a lot in the press conference about individual players as well, but love to hear that from the coaching staff for sure.
Yeah, I also like hearing that, going with what Arkansas has, and you mentioned sharing the ball, I noticed. That was one of the things that also kind of stood out to me just in the early parts, and maybe it's just me and my lack of knowledge of ball knowing. But I was really impressed by a team that's a bunch of new dudes that just came around together, and they're going up against Kansas and whatever. I was kind of impressed by the way that they shared the ball for the most part. You have a lot of really elite level guys that are trying to get to the NBA. And that's always been the fascinating thing of seeing, okay, you got to go get yours. And these guys, their entire career, especially in high school and whatever, it's always been about them getting theirs. Okay, but what happens when you go in and you play with a bunch of guys that are trying to do the same thing? Are you going to give up the ball? Are you going to hit the open man? Are you going to try to play hero ball, as they say? And I know it's Kansas exhibition, but I was impressed by that, how much they share the ball in the early part of this, especially considering some of the guys and what they're trying to accomplish this year too as individuals.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, and that's something that Kenny Payne talked about at Sassy's, which apparently I'm one of 12 people that listens to. But he was talking about how it's really key for. It's not necessarily just about everybody getting their shots, but it's about everybody getting touches on every possession. Like feel the ball and have your opportunities. And when you have a lot of mouths to feed like this, the reason why some people have wondered, is it gonna work, this dynamic in the backcourt? And a lot of people were talking about with DJ Wagner and John L. Davis, and obviously you can throw Boogie Fland into that mix. It's like, well, those are 3 guys. They're not selfish players. They're not ball hogs. They all average a good amount of assists. They've all been, proven capable of playing off the ball, but they're all guys who can create their own offense and create their own shot. You want as much of that as possible to come organically through your offense, because you guys are screening, cutting, moving, passing, and sharing the basketball, reversing it. That is how you get a high quality, highly efficient offense, as opposed to kind of some of what we saw with Eric Musselman was like, all right, Tremont Mark hit a couple shots, everybody get out of his way and let's just let him create. Save that for the end of clock and not within the flow of the offense. And so I like that they're emphasizing that early on. Well,
real quick for Andrew, before you get it, I just wanted to your point, Curtis, I really do like that's what I can't wait to see. And maybe we see it in the TCU game or something, but like, all right, game's on the line, tie game, 20 seconds left. All right, just give it to Nelly and see what happens. I want to see in the game situations that end up being successful, because I'm not trying to throw shade, but Mike Anderson days, it was always Anton Beard and Kai Madden taking a line shot. No one wanted to see that. And then under Muss, I think that there was a little bit of an understanding of where it needed to go. But under Cal, I can't wait to see who's going to be in that position and how he's going to just be like, roll the ball out, hey, give it to Nelly, see what happens, or is there going to be something more to it?
Yeah. Well, and I feel like that it's not going to be just one guy. Like, I don't think it's going to be a consistent, it's just going to be Nelly, or it's just going to be DJ Wagner or whatever. I think you are going to see, kind of like what Curtis was saying, everyone touching it. It's going to be kind of in the flow of the offense. And when you do that, what you have is a lot of overqualified pieces playing together as a team. And, and I watched Kentucky last year and the way that they played and the way that they scored. When you're scoring damn near 100 points a game, ain't too many sad faces. A lot of people get their chances to score. And I think ultimately that's what Arkansas hopes to accomplish. And really, I just feel like, Arkansas has a much higher offensive ceiling this year than they've had in a really long time. And so ultimately, like when you're, like I said, if you're scoring more people are going to be involved in that. And, one of the things that I thought was very interesting that he said, and I'm sure we'll talk about this more in depth on Locked On and for sure, but I love that he was saying we only practiced with 5 guys for a while. So those 5 guys really got to know each other. And so when you talk about Boogie Flynn and DJ Wagner and sort of that dynamic that they were okay to share the ball, it's because they've been practicing together, where a lot of these guys have been in and out. Nelly, of course, been in and out. And so the guys that have been practicing are maybe a little bit more ahead of schedule in that regard than we maybe expected them to be.
Also, the other guy that, of course, is of note is Jonas Adu, which we didn't get to see against Kansas and hadn't got to see much of him. He's dealing with an injury. But Chin Coleman, well, by the way, real quick, what's his official title? Is he just assistant coach?
Associate head coach. Him and Kenny Payne are like dual co-associate head coaches, I guess.
Co-associate head coaches that are assistant coaches to the head coach.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. Sounds great. Really can put it on a business card. But either way, he had this to say about Jonas Adu and type of player that he is, and also maybe when we can actually see him.
I think that's up to our medical staff. He's working extremely hard to get back on the floor, to get back to playing the game he loves. It's something that he said to me yesterday. He had a workout yesterday, looked a lot better. I think he's coming along, but I think that our goal is for everybody to be healthy by our first game, right? These games are very important because they're opportunities for us to play against a different opponent, and we would love to have everybody fully healthy right now. But I think that the main thing is for everyone to be healthy by the beginning of the real regular season, and that may or may not happen, but I think we're close, and I think he's chomping at the bit to try to be available for us at the beginning of the season. But I think that he's close, but our medical staff, Matt and the doctors are doing a really good job of strength conditioning coach, D. Rich. They're working extremely hard to get him and have him available.
So we're not going to see him on Friday, pretty much.
Yeah, probably not. And quite honestly, I don't think it's worth it. And like you would like him to be in there for the sake of, developing chemistry and everything like that with his teammates. But here's the thing about Jonas Adu. He's been there, done that. He's a veteran. He's proven it in the SEC. He's been an all-league player. Just get him to 100%, and then he can work himself into the mix, I think. And so it might be a bit of a process in terms of, early in the year, assuming he's available and cleared to go, he might be playing the minutes that we thought Big Z was going to play, and Big Z might be playing the minutes that we thought Adu was going to play, and then we'll probably balance it out a little bit later. But you got to be patient with it. You got to make sure you have him when it counts. And I know it's frustrating to people, but you just have to be, I think, overly cautious with somebody who's going to be so important to what you got going on. And this is not a situation like Nelly's, where he was able to, continue to run and keep himself in decent enough condition to where, like, you get the cast off of your wrist or whatever, and you can go out there and you might not be able to shoot it, but you can do a lot of other things. He's been in a boot, mostly all summer, and it's been a lingering deal. And so there are things that he's been able to do at practice and individual work and everything like that, but he hasn't been able to do a lot of up and down, and he's missed significant amounts of time. And so it's just a process. Do you want it to be a deal where you keep trying to bring a guy back because you think he's 90% and he's close, and then you wind up having a setback once you get, a couple games in? Or do you just deal with it right now and make sure he is 100% fully healthy and you're not having to worry about that stuff the entire season? I say play it cautious and wait it out. I would have loved to see him Friday. I'd love to see him out there, this weekend, but I don't think we will. For what it's worth, he did some things at the tip-off tour. Like, it's not like he's completely shut down or in a cast or on a scooter or anything like that. He did some things out there 5-on-0. He's not ready for a game yet.
Well, I was gonna say, and I think you would agree that he looked like a guy who had been missing in action and was still kind of trying to figure things out. And yeah, it's hard to argue with the cautious approach. And whenever Jonas Adu does return to the lineup and get on the floor for Arkansas, whether it's Friday, whether it's next week, whether it's even after that, there's going to be an adjustment period, and it's going to take some time for him to fully get back to feeling comfortable out there, get acclimated with his teammates and all that. And so I get some frustration of kind of wanting to do that now rather than later. But ultimately, if there's a guy on this roster that you're just not really that worried about, it would be Jonas Adu. And if there's another one that you wouldn't be worried about, it's John L. Davis, who obviously we saw go through some of that acclimation process last week. And so, yeah, I'm not going to lose too much sleep over it. And ultimately, he said, hey, we want to have everyone ready for the opener, which is true. You do want to have everyone ready for the opener. So him not playing Friday would probably help that. But ultimately, I want this team to be peaking in March. And so if it takes Jonas Adu Thanksgiving break to get his bearings about him, I'm not going to complain too much about it. And again, when it's a player like that who's a veteran, been around for a while, ton of experience, and he's a big man, where I feel like as a big man, it's a little bit easier, rather than a guard who's out there, you better be dialed in 100%, or else these 6'3" guards like Boogie Flan are going to go right by you. When you're a big man, I feel like there's a little bit more room for error, but I'm definitely not going to lose any sleep over Jonas Adu and his ability to help Arkansas' basketball team until he gets back.
And I will say, you mentioned him being a big man, you just think about sheer size. So with Patrick Kudus, when you hear about an offensive lineman with a back, it's that's not something you really want to mess around with and play if it's not 100%. Get that thing fully healed up before you get back out there, which is kind of the approach that Arkansas took with that. Same thing with a big man. This is a dude who's 6'11", 245 pounds, and he's dealing with a foot or whatever. Let that thing heal up, because that's a lot of pounding on that hardwood for somebody of that size.
Pounding the wood. Wow.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I will say that when I got a tweet the other day from somebody when it was about Jonas Adu, and they're like, it's just going to be another Nick Smith situation, and he's just not going to play and stuff. I wanted to put my fist through their face so badly, because it was the most absurd crap. Stop correlating crap that has no business being compared to it. This is a completely different thing. Jeez.
Yeah, Nick, and then of course Nick hurts his draft stock by coming back and not being 100%. The dude could have just sat out the entire season and probably been a top 5 pick. Those stakes are not there for Jonas Adu. In fact, if he wants to get drafted in the NBA or get a G League contract or whatever, he needs to play this year. So it's just 2 entirely different situations. I hate when people do that.
My favorite game is, hey, remember when a completely different human being endured completely different circumstances under a completely different coaching staff and a different season? Remember that? So why don't we think about that? It's I just don't see what that does here.
Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you said that, because Curtis, you know why? Because he loved the Hogs. Yeah. That's why he came back. He loved the Hogs.
That's right.
He embraced the Hog, and so much so it hurt his draft.
Powered by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.